Maya was barely 10, and loneliness had become her closest companion. The sprawling apartment she called home was filled with beautiful things, gleaming furniture, tall windows with silk curtains, and shelves lined with awards her parents had won, but it always felt empty. The laughter, the warmth, the attention she longed for were absent, leaving behind a silence that pressed down on her small frame. Sitting cross-legged on the cold wooden floor of her room, Maya stared at her reflection in a cracked handheld mirror she had found in the attic weeks ago. The girl staring back at her looked tired, her thick black hair unkempt, her eyes round and full of questions no one seemed willing to answer. Her parents were always busy. Her mother, a sharp-dressed woman with a phone glued to her hand, managed a high-profile event planning company. Her father, quieter but no less distant, spent most of his days locked in his home office, hunched over spreadsheets and conference calls. They called their work important, but Maya wondered if it was more important than her. She glanced at the clock. 7:30. Dinner time. Or at least it used to be. There were no more family meals around the oak dining table. These days, her mother would nibble on a salad while pacing the living room, and her father would take his meals in his office, barely noticing when Maya slipped away with her untouched plate. Maya sighed and stood, crossing the room to her window. Outside, the city buzzed with life. People hurried along the sidewalks, their faces glowing under the streetlights. A couple laughed as they walked arm in arm, and a child, about her age, skipped alongside them, swinging a colorful balloon. Maya pressed her forehead against the cool glass, wishing for just a moment that she could be out there too, with someone who noticed her. She turned back to her room. The tablet on her desk lit up with a notification, but Maya ignored it. Instead, she picked up her notebook and pencil. She had started drawing to fill the quiet hours, creating worlds and characters she could escape into. Lately, her drawings had been of a scruffy little dog with floppy ears and a crooked tail. She didn't know why she kept drawing him, but there was something comforting about imagining his playful eyes and wagging tail. Her pencil scratched against the paper, the sound filling the silence. She was halfway through sketching the dog perched on a park bench when she heard voices drifting up from downstairs. "Just sign here," a man said. "Leave it by the door," her mother replied, her tone curt. The door shut with a firm click. Maya hesitated, her pencil hovering over the page. Packages arrived all the time, but tonight felt different. There was a soft, almost imperceptible sound, a whimper. She froze, straining to listen. It came again, louder this time. Curiosity tugged at her. She set her notebook down and crept to the top of the stairs, her small hands gripping the banister. From her vantage point, she could see her mother holding a box, frowning at it. Holes were punched into the sides, and something inside moved. Her mother sighed and placed the box on the floor. "I don't have time for this," she muttered, walking away without a second glance. Maya's heart thudded in her chest. She descended the stairs slowly, her bare feet silent against the cool tiles. Kneeling beside the box, she placed her ear against it. A tiny, hesitant yip greeted her. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the lid. Inside, a pair of wide, frightened eyes stared back at her. The scruffy little dog from her drawings had come to life. Maya stared at the dog, her breath catching in her throat. He was exactly as she had imagined, small and scruffy, with floppy ears and a crooked tail that wagged hesitantly as their eyes met. His fur was matted in places, his ribs faintly visible beneath the wiry coat, but there was a spark of life in his dark eyes, a silent plea for kindness. "Hey there," Maya whispered, her voice trembling as if she were afraid he might disappear. Slowly, she reached out a hand, and the dog sniffed her fingers cautiously before giving them a tentative lick. A smile tugged at the corners of her lips, the first real smile in weeks. From the living room, her mother's voice broke through the moment. "Maya, what are you doing down there?" She froze, glancing over her shoulder. "Nothing," she called back quickly, her heart pounding. Without waiting for a response, she lifted the dog carefully from the box, cradling him against her chest. He was lighter than she expected, his body trembling as he nestled into her arms. She could feel his heartbeat, rapid and uncertain, matching her own. "Let's get you somewhere safe," she whispered. Holding the dog close, she tiptoed back up the stairs and into her room, shutting the door quietly behind her. She placed him gently on her bed, where he immediately curled into a tight ball, his nose tucked under his tail. For a moment, Maya simply watched him. She wanted to give him a name, but none felt right. Instead, she sat beside him and picked up her sketchbook, flipping to a blank page. Pencil in hand, she began to draw him as he was now, small and vulnerable, yet somehow brave. As the lines on the page took shape, she whispered softly, "You look like an echo." Silent, but still there. She smiled again. "Echo it is." The little dog didn't respond, but his tail wagged faintly, as if in agreement. Maya woke to the feeling of something warm and soft pressing against her side. She opened her eyes to find Echo curled up beside her, his nose buried in her blanket. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel alone. But the sound of voices downstairs quickly reminded her of the reality she was living in. "I don't understand why someone would leave that thing on our doorstep," her mother said, her tone sharp. "We're not running a shelter." "It's probably some kind of mix-up," her father replied, his voice muffled. "We'll deal with it later." Maya's stomach tightened. Deal with it. The words echoed in her mind, cold and dismissive. She looked at Echo, who was watching her with trusting eyes. They couldn't take him away, not now. She slid out of bed quietly and dressed quickly, pulling on a hoodie to hide the dog in her arms. "We're going to get some fresh air," she whispered, kissing the top of Echo's head. The city was waking up, the streets buzzing with early morning commuters and vendors setting up their stalls. Maya kept her hood up as she walked, clutching Echo tightly against her chest. She didn't know where she was going, but she needed to think, to figure out how to keep him. She found herself at the small park near her school, a place she used to visit often but hadn't been to in months. The trees swayed gently in the cool breeze, their leaves whispering secrets Maya couldn't hear. She sat on a worn wooden bench, placing Echo beside her. "You're safe here," she said, stroking his fur. "No one can hurt you." For a while, they sat in silence, watching the world go by. A jogger passed, glancing curiously at the pair, but Maya didn't care. For once, she felt like she had someone who understood her, a friend who didn't need words to listen. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Maya's resolve hardened. She didn't know how she would convince her parents, but one thing was certain, she wasn't letting Echo go. "You're mine now," she whispered. Echo licked her hand, and for the first time in a long time, Maya felt like she belonged to someone too. By the time Maya returned home, the apartment felt quieter than usual. Her mother was likely out at a client meeting, and her father's muffled voice carried faintly from his office. Perfect. Maya slipped in through the back entrance, cradling Echo in her arms, and hurried to her room. "You've got to stay quiet, okay?" she whispered to him as she shut the door softly. Echo tilted his head, his floppy ears twitching as if he understood. She rummaged through her closet, pulling out an old shoebox and lining it with a soft scarf. "This will be your bed for now," she said, setting it in the corner of her room. Echo sniffed the makeshift bed before settling in, his tail wagging faintly. Maya let out a small sigh of relief. For now, he was safe. Later that evening, the family gathered in the dining room, a rare occurrence these days. Maya picked at her food, her mind racing with plans to keep Echo hidden. Her mother's voice broke through her thoughts. "Maya, you've barely touched your dinner. What's wrong with you?" Maya shrugged, keeping her eyes down. "I'm just not that hungry." "You're always not hungry these days," her mother snapped, setting her fork down. "You've been so distant. Is there something you need to tell us?" Maya's heart raced. Was this it? Did they know about Echo? She shook her head quickly. "No, I'm fine." Her father, engrossed in his phone, barely looked up. "Let her be, Sarah. She's a kid. Kids are moody." Her mother scoffed. "Moody or not, she can't keep acting like this." Maya, if something is wrong, you need to tell us. Maya clenched her fists under the table, biting back the words she wanted to scream. You don't notice anything. You don't care. You've never cared. Instead, she muttered, I'm fine, and excused herself, leaving her plate untouched. Back in her room, Maya sank to the floor beside Echo's box. He peeked out, his tail thumping softly against the side. She reached out to stroke his fur, feeling a lump rise in her throat. I wish you could talk, she whispered. You'd be the only one who'd listen. Echo licked her hand, his warm tongue a silent answer. Maya smiled despite herself. He didn't need words, he understood her in a way no one else did. Over the next few days, Maya's routine revolved around Echo. She woke early to feed him scraps from the kitchen and sneaked him out to the park when her parents were busy. She started staying in her room more, using the excuse of schoolwork to avoid questions. Her drawings of Echo filled her sketchbook, images of him running, playing, sleeping. Each picture felt like a piece of the world she was building for him, a world where he was loved and safe. It wasn't long before cracks started to show in Maya's plan. One afternoon, her mother stormed into her room unannounced, startling both Maya and Echo, who was curled up on her bed. Maya, why does it smell like? Her mother froze, her eyes widening as she spotted Echo. What is that? Maya scrambled to block her view. Nothing. It's just my stuffed animal. But Echo chose that moment to bark, a small, high-pitched sound that gave him away. Her mother's face twisted in disbelief. Maya, is that a dog? She stepped closer, her voice rising. Where did it come from? How long have you been hiding it? Maya felt tears prick her eyes. I found him, someone left him in a box outside. Her mother crossed her arms, glaring. We are not keeping a stray dog, Maya. You know we don't have time for this. Get rid of it. No. The word burst out before she could stop it. He's mine. I found him, and he needs me. Her mother's expression hardened. And I suppose you've been sneaking him food? Taking him out? Maya, this is ridiculous. You're too young to take care of a dog. I'm not. Maya shouted, her voice cracking. You don't understand. He's the only one who, she stopped, choking on her words. Her mother stared at her, taken aback. The only one who what? Maya wiped at her eyes, her chest heaving. The only one who's here. You're never around, and Dad doesn't even notice me. Echo's the only one who cares. For a moment, silence filled the room. Maya's mother opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, she sighed deeply and turned away. We'll talk about this later, she said quietly before leaving the room and shutting the door behind her. Maya sank to the floor beside Echo, her tears falling freely now. They don't understand, she whispered. Echo pressed his nose against her hand, his presence a small but powerful comfort. That night, Maya lay awake, the confrontation with her mother replaying in her mind. The air in her room felt heavy, charged with the tension of unspoken words. Echo lay curled at her feet, his soft snores a steady rhythm in the darkness. His presence was the only thing keeping her from falling apart completely. The faint hum of her parents' voices drifted up the stairs. She couldn't make out the words, but the sharpness in her mother's tone and the occasional low murmurs from her father made it clear they were arguing. About her? About Echo? Tears pricked her eyes again, but she quickly wiped them away. Crying wouldn't change anything. She needed to figure out a way to keep Echo, no matter what it took. Maya woke early, determined to protect Echo. She slipped out of bed and quickly got dressed, pulling on her sneakers and hoodie. Echo wagged his tail as he watched her, tilting his head in curiosity. Come on, she whispered, scooping him up. Let's go for a walk before they wake up. The morning air was crisp, the city still stirring to life. Maya made her way to the park, where the trees swayed gently in the breeze, their leaves rustling like a soft lullaby. She found her usual bench and sat down, setting Echo on her lap. You'd like it here, wouldn't you? She asked him, scratching behind his ears. It's peaceful. No one to tell us what to do. Echo barked softly, his crooked tail wagging, and Maya laughed. It was a small sound, but it felt good, light, like a crack in the heavy cloud that had been hanging over her. But the peace didn't last. As she sat there, she noticed a man in a uniform walking through the park. Animal control. Her heart sank. She pulled Echo close, her mind racing. Had someone reported her? Had her parents called? The man's gaze swept over the park, and for a moment, it seemed like he was heading straight for her. Maya's breath caught, but then he turned away, walking toward a group of kids playing with a dog near the fountain. Relief flooded her, but it was short-lived. She couldn't keep sneaking around like this forever. Sooner or later, someone would notice. Back at home, Maya's father, Mark, sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee and staring at his laptop. He had heard every word of Maya's outburst the night before, and it lingered in his mind like an ache he couldn't shake. The only one who's here. Those words had struck a chord, one he wasn't ready to face. He had always prided himself on providing for his family, on making sure Maya had everything she needed. But when was the last time he had really spent time with her? Asked her how she was feeling? He glanced at the empty chair across from him and felt a pang of guilt. Somewhere along the way, he and Sarah had let their work consume them. Maya had become a shadow in their lives, present but unnoticed. Mark sighed and closed his laptop. He didn't know how to fix things, but he couldn't ignore them any longer. When Maya returned from the park, she found her father waiting for her in the living room. His presence there surprised her. He was usually holed up in his office by this time. "Maya," he said, his tone softer than she expected. "Can we talk?" Her first instinct was to run, to hide, but something in his eyes stopped her. She nodded reluctantly and sat on the edge of the couch, keeping Echo hidden in her hoodie. "I heard what you said last night," he began, his voice steady but laced with regret. "About feeling like we're not here. I didn't realize you felt that way." Maya stared at the floor, her fingers tightening around Echo. "You wouldn't notice. You're always too busy." Her words stung, but Mark nodded. "You're right. I have been too busy. And I'm sorry for that." Maya looked up, surprised. She hadn't expected an apology. "But Maya," he continued, his eyes falling to the small lump wriggling in her hoodie, "we need to talk about this dog." "He's mine," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "I'll take care of him, I promise. You won't even have to do anything." Mark sighed. "It's not about that. A dog is a big responsibility. And your mother and I, we just don't know if we can handle that right now." Maya felt tears welling up, but she blinked them away. "He needs me, Dad. I can't just let him go." Mark studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he leaned back in his chair. "Let me think about it, okay? I need to talk to your mother, but I'll try to see it from your side." It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it wasn't a no. For now, that was enough. Maya spent the rest of the day in her room with Echo, her heart caught in a whirlwind of hope and uncertainty. Her father's words replayed in her mind, "I'll try to see it from your side." It wasn't much, but it was the first time in a long time that she felt like someone was actually listening to her. Downstairs, Mark found Sarah in the kitchen, scrolling through emails on her tablet while sipping coffee. The aroma of freshly baked bread filled the air, but she didn't seem to notice. Her focus was elsewhere, as always. "We need to talk about Maya," Mark said, sitting down across from her. Sarah barely glanced up. "What about her?" Mark hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "She's struggling. I think we've been so focused on work that we've been neglecting her." Sarah sighed, setting her tablet down. "Mark, we provide everything she needs. She has a good home, clothes, school. What more does she want?" "She wants us," Mark said firmly. "She feels invisible, Sarah. And now there's the dog. The dog, Sarah interrupted, her tone sharp. Mark, we can't have a dog. We barely have time for ourselves, let alone a pet. Mark leaned forward, his voice soft but insistent. Maybe the dog isn't the problem. Maybe it's what he represents. She's holding on to him because she feels like she doesn't have anyone else. Sarah frowned, her expression softening slightly. You think it's that serious? Mark nodded. I think we need to take this seriously before it's too late. Sarah leaned back in her chair, her fingers tapping against the edge of the table. I don't know, Mark. I need to think about this. Over the next few days, Maya kept to herself, spending most of her time with Echo. She took him to the park early in the mornings, before the streets got busy, and fed him scraps from her meals. Echo seemed to sense her unease, sticking close to her side and wagging his tail whenever she spoke to him. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Maya sat on the floor of her room, sketching another picture of Echo. This time, she drew him sitting beside her on the park bench, their silhouettes framed by the golden light of the setting sun. You make everything better, she whispered, glancing at him. Echo wagged his tail, his eyes filled with a quiet understanding. A knock at the door startled her. She quickly slid the sketchbook under her bed and pulled a blanket over Echo, who remained silent but watchful. Come in, she called, trying to sound casual. Her father stepped inside, holding a small box. I thought you might want this, he said, setting it on her desk. Maya opened the box cautiously. Inside was a collar and a small tag engraved with the name Echo. Her eyes widened. Does this mean? Mark smiled gently. Your mom and I talked about it. We're going to let you keep him, on one condition. What is it? She asked, her voice trembling with excitement. You have to show us you're responsible, Mark said. That means feeding him, walking him, and taking care of him. No excuses. Maya nodded quickly, her face lighting up. I promise. I'll take care of him. Thank you, Dad. Mark ruffled her hair, something he hadn't done in years. He's a lucky dog, Maya. And so are we. From that day on, things began to change. Maya's parents made an effort to spend more time with her, starting with small gestures, a family dinner, a walk in the park, or even just sitting with her while she sketched. Echo became a bridge between them, his playful antics bringing laughter and warmth back into their home. Maya still carried the scars of her loneliness, but with Echo by her side, she felt stronger. For the first time in a long time, she believed things could get better. Years later, Maya stood on the same park bench where it all began, a leash in her hand and a graying Echo at her feet. The city buzzed around her, but for Maya, the world felt peaceful. Her parents stood nearby, watching as she sketched the scene, a girl and her dog, together through it all. Echo barked softly, and Maya smiled. He had been her silent echo in the darkest times, and now, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she knew she would never be alone again.